My parents wouldn't buy me clothes for the biggest interview of my life. Not even a shirt. I stood in the hallway with my phone in my hand, looking at the email again. Final interview. Executive office. 9:00 a.m. I had made it further than I had ever made it before. I needed a suit. My father didn't look up from the television when I asked. Your sister has an old one. I thought he was joking, then my mother opened the closet. The suit was hanging at the back. It had belonged to my sister 3 years earlier, when she was applying for her first corporate job. It was expensive, tailored almost new, and far too big for me. My mother held it against my shoulders. Good enough. I looked at myself in the mirror. The jacket swallowed me. The sleeves covered half my hands. The trousers had to be folded at the waist. I laughed nervously. I can't wear this. My father finally looked over. Why not? Because it doesn't fit, he shrugged. Then wear it with a belt. I waited. I don't know what I was waiting for. Maybe for someone to say, fine, we'll help you get something that fits. Instead, my mother sighed. We're not spending money on new things every time you have an idea. It's an interview. Your sister managed with what she had. I stared at the suit. That was the part that hurt, because my sister hadn't managed with what she had. She had been taken shopping. I remembered it. My mother had helped her choose 3 outfits. My father had paid for alterations. They had celebrated when she got the job. I had been there. I remembered standing outside the fitting room holding her handbag, but I didn't say any of that. I took the suit upstairs. That night, I stood in front of my bedroom mirror with a box of safety pins. I pinned the waistband, then the sleeves, then the shoulders. I moved carefully, afraid that one wrong adjustment would make the whole thing fall apart. The strange thing was, I had spent years doing the same thing with my life, making myself smaller, adjusting, holding everything together quietly, pretending it fit. At 7:30 the next morning, I put on the suit. It still looked ridiculous, but I went. The company was in a glass building downtown. Everyone in the lobby seemed to know what they were doing. Everyone except me. I kept pulling at the sleeves. I could feel the safety pins pressing against my waist. For the first 10 minutes, I was convinced the receptionist was staring at my clothes. Then I realized she wasn't. Neither was the interviewer. They were listening to me. That surprised me. The interview lasted nearly an hour. I answered questions. I admitted when I didn't know something. I explained a project I had worked on. At some point, I stopped thinking about the suit. I was just talking, being myself. When it ended, the interviewer thanked me and left the room. I sat there alone. I thought it was over. Then the door opened again. A woman walked in. I recognized her immediately. The CEO. I had seen her photograph on the company's website. She looked at me, then at my suit. I instinctively reached for the sleeve. Her expression changed, not pity, recognition. Who put you in that suit? She asked. I didn't answer. She nodded slowly. I know exactly who. I looked down. She walked over to a chair, took off her blazer, and held it toward me. Here, I stared at it. I can't take that. You're not taking it. She placed it over the back of my chair. You're wearing it. I didn't move. She looked directly at me. Do you know what I noticed in your interview? I shook my head. You were prepared. I said nothing. You were nervous, she continued, but you didn't lie to cover it. You didn't pretend to know everything. You thought before you answered. She paused. That's rare. I looked at the blazer, then at her. My clothes aren't exactly. I know. Her voice was gentle, but firm. And that's why I'm telling you something you need to remember. She leaned against the table. Never confuse what someone was willing to give you with what you were worth receiving. I felt something shift inside me. Not dramatically, there were no tears, no sudden revelation. Just a quiet realization that had probably been waiting years for someone to say it aloud. The CEO nodded toward the blazer. Put it on. So I did. It fit perfectly. Not because it made me look more important, because for the first time that morning, I stopped trying to hide. She walked me back into the hallway. The interviewer was waiting. The CEO said, "We're moving you forward." I froze. The interviewer smiled. "Your work was strong." The CEO looked at me. The suit had nothing to do with it. That was the moment everything changed, not because I got the job. I didn't know yet if I would. It changed because someone with nothing to gain from flattering me had seen what my family had spent years overlooking: my ability, my effort, me. 2 days later, I received the offer I told my parents at dinner. My father nodded, my mother smiled. "See? You worried for nothing." I almost laughed, but I didn't. My father asked how much the position paid. My mother asked whether the company had good benefits. Neither asked what the interview had been like. Neither asked how I had felt walking into that room. And strangely, I wasn't angry. I had spent years wanting them to understand. That night, I went upstairs and took the safety pins out of my sister's suit. I folded it carefully. The next morning, I returned it to the closet. Then I stood in front of the mirror. For once, I wasn't checking whether something fit. I was asking myself a different question. Why had I spent so long believing I had to earn the right to be treated well? I still don't have a perfect answer. My relationship with my parents didn't magically improve. I didn't confront them. I didn't give a speech. I simply stopped asking them for things they had already shown me they didn't want to give. Support and encouragement bought perception to believe in myself. I found those somewhere else. And eventually, inside myself, the CEO returned her blazer to me after the interview process was finished. I had left it folded over the back of the chair. She handed it to me without a word. I thanked her. Then I gave it back. I didn't need to keep it. I had already understood what it meant. Some people spend their whole lives telling you what you don't deserve. Sometimes, all it takes is one person with enough authority to see clearly and enough kindness to say nothing more than, "I see you." After that, you begin to see yourself differently, too.